Hello, Cancer Risings. Welcome to your monthly zodiac reading for the month of November 2025. This month is jam-packed, so let's not waste any time. As always, we are going to pull an overall energy theme for the month. We will pull tarot for each week, clarify those messages with or go over those tarot messages as well as the astrological insights occurring for those weeks, kind of tie them in together, and then we will get clarifying messages through more tarot and more oracle. So let's see, what is the overall energetic message for the month of November? What do Cancer risings need to know for the month of November? Focus on the positive. I'm curious. It was almost like the back of the deck just kind of popped. Well, we'll find out later. But new moon in Sagittarius, focus on the positive. Now we have a lot. There are a couple things happening within the sign of Sagittarius. So it could mean that your Sagittarius house is the area of your life that is going to be highlighted here toward or for the majority of November. So Sagittarius is currently sitting in your 6th house. This is your house of health and work habits. This is where we, of course, discuss work habits, but it mainly focuses on what occurs throughout our day-to-day, right? And that does encompass our health habits and our work habits. It encompasses things like pets and coworkers and like the routes we take to work, the drives that we take on a daily basis. It essentially encompasses every single thing that occurs in a daily basis. So for you guys, it could definitely mean that your 6th house, focusing on your day-to-day, is more of the priority, regardless of what else is happening. If you just kind of harness that focus for the majority of the month, it definitely could mean that you guys finding that positivity throughout your day-to-day could be key to getting you through anything that occurs. But let's see what the tarot has to say for you guys. Who is that? The 7 of Wands out of the deck for the first week. Let's finish our shuffle. Seven of Wands here in the first week. So here in this first week, there's a lot that's happening. There are about 4 or 5 different transits that are occurring here in this first week. One of which is Mars is moving into the sign of Sagittarius. So you may find yourself very, very impatient on a daily basis, or you could find yourself just very focused and driven to get things accomplished, right, throughout your day-to-day. Mars is the planet of action, aggression, desire, initiative, and control. And it allows us to really either take that energy and just harness it for better or for worse, right? Sagittarius, again, sits in your 6th house. So this is focusing on your day-to-day routines, right? So things throughout your day-to-day could really, really ramp up. On the 5th, we will be having a full moon within the sign of Taurus. Full moons are a buildup of energy, and the light of the moon is illuminating something that you need to see, probably something that needs to be released or let go of, something that's not working for you. Taurus sits in your 11th house. This is your house of hopes and dreams. This is your house of future aspirations, right? Like what you envision for the future. It is also your house of social networks, social circles, and group activities. So with Taurus, if we're looking at your day-to-day and we're looking at the tie between your day-to-day and even your future, remember, the things that we do on a day-to-day basis ultimately create the groundwork for our future. So you need to ask yourself, what do I want for the future? And are the actions I take on a day-to-day basis laying the groundwork for that? Are they contributing to that long-term investment, right? Here, this is the week that we also have Venus moving into the sign of Scorpio. When she's in Scorpio, she is in her detriment. She does not feel well there. Scorpio is very much like a lover of the deep, dark, and intense type of things. And Venus is not very comfortable there. She's much more like pinks and gold and luxury and beauty and aesthetic and art and music and poetry. She's much softer. So she doesn't really feel comfortable within the sign of Scorpio. Um, but it can mean that our relationships take a very deep and intense tone. They could become quite obsessive, or you could become obsessive over things like relationships, money, value, etc. Scorpio sits in your fifth house. So it could be that if you are in the market for love or relationships, meeting someone new, you could meet someone new and it could take on a very obsessive tone. So just be mindful of that. On the 8th, Uranus is already retrograde, but it will be retrograding to the point where it's sitting at 0 degrees, which is infinite possibility, but it's sitting at 0 degrees in the sign of Gemini, which is your 12th house, right? So you could begin to feel certain things being triggered, or it could actually feel like a reprieve, okay? But we have the 7 of Wands here, and this is one about placing boundaries either between you and another individual, placing boundaries on yourself if we're looking at the tie between day to day and the future, placing those boundaries on yourself. Or it could really just maybe be like focusing on not giving up on your dreams, not giving up on what it is that you want for the future, right? Really fighting for your place at the table, okay? Here in the second week, Judgment in reverse. So this is representing that one, something is, you've either made a judgment call and you've made a judgment call that something is not going to be revived. Like, so I'm done with, say, a habit. I am done with a relationship. I am done with entertaining or giving my energy to a specific type of thing. This can also represent that there is a lot of judgment, like self-judgment, right? You really, potentially you're afraid to feel judged by others, or it can represent that there is a fear to surrender. There's a fear to make a judgment call. There's a fear to make a decision or a choice because you're afraid of what's going to happen if you ultimately make that choice. Again, whether that's fear from being judged by others or just a fear of the unknown. You're like, you know, something needs to change, but you're not entirely sure if you're able to do that. This is the week that Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde within the sign of Sagittarius. So currently Mercury, it actually moves into Sagittarius today. So it could mean that with Mercury being in your day-to-day, communication gets easier on your day-to-day. Clarity and thoughts and ideas just could come flooding in, usually on a day-to-day basis. Maybe even when you're doing just random things, you get this burst of new ideas. But Mercury is going to station retrograde, which means that all of that forward moving energy is actually going to slow down and it's going to be turning inward, right? So it could mean that, and especially for you guys with Sagittarius being in your 6th house, things like miscommunication, tech mishaps, car issues, just a lot of things that delay the progress of your day-to-day could occur with Mercury being retrograde within your 6th house. And you're going to have to deal with that for almost 2 weeks. So I just want you to be aware of that. Okay. Yes, it's frustrating. It's probably not going to be life altering, but it is definitely going to be frustrating. And especially with Mars also being there, you're going to want to maintain your temper. You're going to want to maintain this feeling, this desire to lash out if things aren't quite going your way. That could be why you need to focus on the positive, right? Jupiter on the 11th, Jupiter is also going to be stationing retrograde in your 1st house. So Jupiter being in your 1st house, Jupiter is expanding your sense of self. It is deepening your sense of self. And truthfully, you guys are becoming a lot wiser with this planet. sitting there. But with this energy going retrograde, again, it's being reflected inward. So it could mean that any of this expansion that you guys have experienced over the last couple of months, you're going to begin to review that. You're going to begin to reevaluate that. Potentially, probably your belief systems, right? How you, specifically, it feels like how you see the world and how you feel like the world sees you. And that could be what it is. You're really judging the world around you, and you feel like maybe they are specifically judging you. Here in the third week, the Nine of Wands. So the Nine of Wands represents the wounded warrior, right? This can represent having your guard up, really maybe not wanting to let people in close to you, but still ready to kind of do what needs to be done. This can also represent that you are someone who, and this is probably true for you guys, you are consistently giving to other people. You are consistently ready to help fight someone else's battles. Even though you are feeling tired, even though you are feeling exhausted, you're not ready to give up the fight. Okay? Here, this is actually the Nine of Wands is Sagittarius energy. So again, your sixth house is being activated. It is also the moon. The moon represents our emotions, right? You're not ready to give up. And you guys, and Jupiter being within your first house could be really focusing on emotional attachments. And with it being retrograde, you're being asked to review those attachments, but you're not ready to give up. Here, this is the week that we have the new moon within the sign of Scorpio. New moons are blank slates or new opportunities to set intentions. And within the sign of Scorpio, this is again going to activate your fifth house. So your fifth house governs one-off romantic love affairs. It governs children. It governs self-expression. It governs things like creativity and hobbies, okay? Things that bring us a lot of joy. Typically things that bring us a lot of joy, right? So it could mean that, like, with the new moon in Scorpio, it almost feels like it's giving you a new opportunity to really rediscover what brings you joy. Really rediscover, because if you're putting a lot of energy, a lot of effort into helping fight for other things or helping fight for other people, consistently trying to fight for your seat at the table, so to speak, for lack of a better term, it could mean that this time in Scorpio is one asking you to put up some boundaries with yourself, and even spiritual boundaries, energetic boundaries, but also is trying to get you to I lost my train of thought. Focus on what brings you joy, right? This is also the week that we will experience a Mercury Sun cazimi. If you've been listening to these readings from me, you already know what a cazimi is. For those of you who do not know, this is when the sun and a planet sit literally right on top of one another. This time, this is Mercury, but Mercury is retrograde. Kazimis tend to bring like innovative ideas. It tends to bring a bout of clarity, a new message of some sort. But because this energy is retrograde, this is, instead of it coming from an external source, it is only going to come from you. The clarity, the intuitive insight, the aha moment is only going to come from within. And again, Scorpio is a very depth-driven sign. This is a very psychological and emotional sign. So it's really, Scorpio is the type of sign that likes to do the deep dive. It likes to do the deep work. So it could mean that with this new moon, you really just need to do that deep dive to find what brings you joy. What are you willing to keep fighting for? And what are you willing to let go to the wayside? Here in the last week, the Page of Pentacles, very nice. So pages are messengers of the tarot. They are also apprentices. This Page of Pentacles is potentially delivering a message of new financial opportunity or a new opportunity to invest into something that you value. This could also mean that you're really needing to learn how to be very practical with what it is that you value, with your resources, your personal resources. And your personal resources not only include finances, like actual money, but it also includes your time. That includes your energy. That includes your mental and emotional energy, your spiritual energy. Those are all your natural resources, right? So maybe you need to be more practical with how you go about spending those natural resources. Now, this is the week that Saturn will be stationing direct on the 28th. Saturn is currently retrograde in Pisces, which is your house of higher learning, house of philosophy, spiritual, moral beliefs. And then Mercury will also be stationing direct the day after within the sign of Scorpio. It is going to start retrograde in Sagittarius and then ultimately retrograde back into Scorpio. It will go direct at 20 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. And then again, that could bring a lot of clarity, and it could bring a message of what it is that you've really been thinking on. And it feels almost like something you know deep down that you should be doing a certain thing, or you've had kind of this gut instinct to move in a particular direction, but it's almost like you're avoiding it for some reason. And maybe you feel like it's not the right time. Maybe you feel like you need more proof that this is the right way to go. If that's the case, you should be getting that towards the end of the month. Let's see. I know that was a lot. That was too many. Here in the first week, the Seven of Wands, Judgment in reverse again, and Justice in reverse. Okay. So if we're looking at the full moon within the sign of Taurus and even Mars moving into Sagittarius, again, I do feel like these two energies are going to be tag teaming. And again, with Sagittarius energy being heavily active this month for you guys, your 6th house is going to be a real key place for you. But the Seven of Wands, it feels like putting up boundaries, right? With Judgment in reverse, it could be putting up boundaries with yourself, like to stop judging yourself. Stop judging yourself. And even with Justice in reverse represents that I just got a different insight and then I lost my train of thought. Justice in reverse is really representing like there's a need to take accountability for the role that you play in how things turn out in your life, right? So when it comes to judgment and justice all in this week, the full moon in Taurus is maybe forcing you to recognize that what you want for your future, that your current actions aren't actually contributing to that. Almost like there's this contradictory idea. Almost like you were like, I want this specific type of future. I want X, Y, and Z in my future. But the choices you make on a day-to-day basis don't align with that future, right? So they feel very contradictory is what this feels like to me. The intuitive hit that I got is that some of you may be dealing with someone on a daily basis that you have to set boundaries with. This could be a romantic partner, since your 5th house is being activated, a past person, could even be a past spouse almost, but someone that the situation is not going to be revived. Like you're not going to be able to be friends with this person. You're not going to be able to have decent conversations with this person. And maybe you feel like that's very unfair. Maybe they feel like that is very unfair. But regardless, you need to be able to set those boundaries. right? Really set those boundaries, protect your energy in a way, and just keep fighting for what you feel like is right. Even if people are judging you, even if those around you feel like it is unfair, you need to keep fighting for what you know is right for you. Okay? Here, Judgment in reverse, the Two of Wands. You know what choice needs to be made. I think you're struggling to make it, and you're trying to figure out what's the best path forward. And the Empress. So both weeks, you've gotten two major arcana cards, and that's a big deal, right? Because that means that this energy is very fluid, it's very prevalent, and it's definitely going to be one of these weeks that are going to just make a major impact. They could feel challenging in the moment, but again, I think if you focus on the positive, if you focus on where you're wanting to go, and just focus on the fact that the choices you make are going to be leading you there, then I think it will be much easier to handle. But here in the second week, again, the week that Mercury is going to station retrograde within the sign of Sagittarius, definitely, I think, feeling unsure of a change that you need to make. Or actually, no, this actually could feel like, again, making that judgment. I've already made this judgment call. It has been life changing. I have decided to follow my instincts. I have decided to follow my gut. I have decided to, again, fight for what I know is right for me, and to follow that moment, follow that path. And you're kind of looking at the world maybe with this sense of optimism. You're like, I've already made this decision, and now I'm choosing where to go. I'm choosing which path to take with the Two of Wands. And then here we have the Empress, which is about birthing a new cycle for yourself, birthing something new, a new sense of creativity, creative insight. This feels like a renewal almost. And it feels like maybe this time you need to maybe choose the path of, again, focusing on what's right for you, not so much taking care of others, but nurturing and focusing on what is right for you, and focusing on what it is that you want to create, right? Focusing definitely on what it is that you want to create for yourself, and definitely nurturing yourself, really helping yourself grow and evolve and renew through this time of transition. Because with two judgments coming out, both in reverse, it feels like you're kind of facing a lot of opposition head on, which is a really brave and courageous thing to do, but it is probably going to zap your energy, and you're going to need to focus on that self-care and that sense of renewal, the things that really rejuvenate you. Here in the third week, the Nine of Wands, the Four of Wands in reverse, and the Tower in reverse. You've got some major heavy hitters. So again, this is the week of the new moon in Scorpio. Scorpio is hitting your fifth house again of self creativity, children, self-expression, hobbies, the things you do for fun, right? You're really tired, you're really frustrated. Maybe you've got your guard up. You're still fighting for things, but it feels almost like you've found yourself in a situation that you just don't want to be in. With the Four of Wands in reverse, the Four of Wands represent there's a lack of stability and structure. And it's making things very unstable, which is making either things within the household, things within, again, your day-to-day life, things within the physical home, very unsteady and very uncertain. And it could be, again, because you're resisting this change. You, with judgment, you know what needs to happen. You know what you need to do, but it almost feels like you are just gearing yourself up to do it, right? You're gearing yourself up. And I just heard making excuses, maybe making a lot of excuses as to why you can't just pull the trigger on making the change that you know is necessary and that you know that needs to be made. Because the Tower in reverse represents inevitable change. It represents inevitable change. This change was going to happen whether you went along with it or not. And you fighting against it is not going to really do you any good. It's not going to do you any good at all. You need to allow this change to occur, as uncomfortable, as unsteady as it feels. You can't keep trying to save people. You need to focus more on you. Here in the, I always do that. Here in the 4th week. So again, this is the week of the new moon in Scorpio. Set those intentions to, again, focus on what brings you joy. I'm trying to think of how these cards are going to apply, how you can kind of utilize this with Scorpio energy. I think you just need to stop resisting this transformation, because these butterflies, I noticed these butterflies. Butterfly is associated, Scorpio is the sign of transformation. Butterflies are associated with transformation. You can keep fighting for what it is that you want, but it's going to continue to make things very unsteady. It's going to continue to make things very unpredictable and very unsteady. And you may just have to resolve yourself to the fact that this change is this is a battle you can't win. And you need to just allow yourself to go through this transformation and to almost feels like acceptance, right? With judgment here, if people are judging you, like if you do this thing, if you leave this job, if you leave this person, if you leave this marriage, people are going to judge you. They're going to talk. Well, guess what? They're probably talking anyway. You know they're going to talk. You know they're going to make you out to be the villain. Let them do it. Because 1, they don't know the whole story. 2, you have to do what is best for you. Right? But consistently fighting for something that is ultimately, that was going to change and going to come to an end anyway, is just going to exhaust your energy further. Okay? So you just need to accept the repercussions of what's going to happen, whether they are justified or not, and let the energy move as it's meant to. Here in the 4th week, the Page of Pentacles, the 9 of Cups, very big shift, and the 10 of Pentacles. Look at that. Look at that. So that's a big shift. Here in this last week, this Page of Pentacles is, like I said, it's learning to be more, I think, conservative with your resources, being more intentional with your resources and what you value. For some of you, this could mean that some of you may be leaving a job, quitting a career, leaving a job. You're worried. You're like, I'm waiting for the right time to do it. You know you want to leave the job. You know it's not a good place for you. And you're like, I'm just waiting on the right time. I'm waiting on the right time. I'm waiting on the right time. I'm waiting on the right time. Well, there's never going to be a right time. And it could create some uncertainty, could create some instability within your life. But it could mean that here in this last week, you get an opportunity for a new job. And that actually brings a sense of joy and gratitude, and maybe even aligns further with what it is that you want for the future, right? What it is that it brings more stability, it brings more comfort, it brings more of a sense of security into your life, and ultimately a deeper sense of connectedness. That makes more sense to me than somebody leaving a marriage. Again, that could be applicable since this is a collective reading, but ultimately, because this is concerning your day-to-day routines a lot, I think this has a lot to do with somebody is leaving a job. Somebody's leaving a job, and it feels like maybe it's probably not a job that you want anyway. or it turned out to be not something that you really, really cared about. Or like, I shouldn't say cared about, but overly invested in, right? But it definitely looks like here at the end of the month with Mercury stationing direct, it's going to bring more clarity. It's going to bring this message of a new opportunity, particularly a financial opportunity. And that's going to bring a sense of gratitude and joy, which is ultimately what you wanted to create in the long run anyway. It's what you wanted to create in the long run anyway, and it helps reestablish this feeling of security and stability. So that's beautiful. Count your blessings. Again, focusing on that positive. Count, even though it's very challenging to do when you're in a position, whether that is a job, a relationship, when you find yourself in a position that you don't want to be in, it's very challenging to focus on the positive. It is very challenging to count your blessings, so to speak. You can feel like it's unfair. But I do think that justice is there telling you, like, you need to take accountability for part of this. There's like, we get to choose every single day the life that we lead. And when we find ourselves leading a life that we're not particularly content with, we have to at least accept some responsibility for that. So it could mean, again, establishing those boundaries with other people, maybe who you feel like are judging you, maybe you feel like you are judging you, and really taking the time to accept and take on that sense of accountability, even if it feels unfair. Do all things in moderation. Slow down. And I think I said that earlier. It's a time that energy is really going to slow down, and it's going to shift, and it's going to go inward, and it's going to give you a chance to nurture yourself. And this means that you could get fired or laid off from your job. And it's going to be like, I hated this job anyway, but I wasn't ready to leave it yet. Right? So some of you could be getting laid off, and at first it feels really unfair, maybe because it feels out of nowhere. But actually, this is a time for you to come to a place of acceptance and be like, I wanted to look for a new job anyway, and now I have to. But right now, this gives me a chance to slow down, and it gives me a chance to focus on myself and just create something more aligned with me. Change tracks. You cannot continue to fight this same battle. Again, whether that is in your career, whether that is with your relationship, maybe that's with coworkers at your job, right? Still types of relationships, not romantic, but they are types of relationships, something you see and people you interact with on a daily basis. You can't keep doing these people's jobs for them. You can't keep fighting their battles for them. You can't do it. So you need to shift gears. You need to change tracks. Again, maybe you need to change jobs, change careers, change fields, but you need to shift tracks because you can't keep doing this over and over and over and over and over. That was inevitable change because you were not meant to be in that position that you were in. Again, whether that is a relationship or a career, you were not meant to be in that position. Here in the last week, do something different. Apply for a job that maybe seems like way off in the distance, something I never considered I would do, something maybe that just seems fun, something to just kind of mull over in the meantime. Get a job at Starbucks or a local like a local place, something that you really just feel like allows you to lighten the mood, maybe take some burden off of you. It still brings in a sense of responsibility, stability, and security, but it doesn't come with all the responsibility. It doesn't come with the headache. It doesn't come with all of that unnecessary grief and weight, because it feels like a weight. It feels like a burden. that you had before, do something different. Again, like I said, apply for a job. If you work in a corporate job and you get laid off or you don't want to be there anymore, and you're like, there's a job for an art studio coordinator. I don't even know anything about art, but you know what? It looks fun. Take a shot. Take a shot, do something different. Because I think what that's going to do is that's going to spark this sense of gratitude. It's going to spark this sense of creativity. It is going to spark and is going to ignite something new within you that I think reveals to you something about your long-term vision, maybe that you either forgot or you haven't seen yet. So I absolutely love this reading for you. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I hope you guys have an incredible month, and we will see you next time.